وَالَّذِينَ اتَّخَذُوا مِن دُونِهِ أَوْلِيَاءَ اللَّهُ حَفِيظٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَمَا أَنْتَ عَلَيْهِمْ بِوَكِيلٍ.
Those who have taken others than Him as their protectors beside Him, it is Allah who oversees them. You are no guardian over them.
6. The word awliya, sing. Wali, as used in the text, is very comprehensive in meaning. The different beliefs and all sorts of diverse practices with regard to the false deities held and worshipped by the polytheistic people have been described as taking others as awliya, guardians, instead of Allah in the Quran. According to the Quran, a person takes such a one his wali, one whom he obeys in all matters, whose instructions he carries out and whose ways and customs and rules he follows in all affairs of life. Surah An-Nisa, ayats 118 to 120, Surah Al-Araf, ayats 3, 27 to 30, 2, in whose guidance he has full faith, and who he thinks will lead him aright and save him from error and deviation. Surah Al-Baqarah, ayat 257, Surah Bani Israel, ayat 97, Surah Al-Kahf, ayat 17 to 50, Surah Al-Jatiyah, ayat 19, 3, about whom he trusts that he will protect him from the torment of God in the hereafter if it really existed. Surah An-Nisa, ayats 123,173, Surah Al-An'am, ayat 51, Surah Ar-Ra'd, ayat 37, Surah Al-Ankabut, ayat 22, Surah Al-Ahzab, ayat 65, Surah Az-Zumar, ayat 3, 4, about whom he has the belief that he helps him in the world in supernatural ways, protects him from disaster and afflictions, gets him jobs, blesses him with children, and fulfills his desires and all other needs. Surah Hud, ayat 20, Surah Ar-Ra'd, ayat 16, Surah Al-Ankabut, ayat 4l. At some places in the Quran the word wali has been used in one of these senses and at others in all its meanings. The verse being commented upon is one of such verses. In it, taking others as guardians instead of Allah implies regarding them as one's patron and supporter and helper in all the four above mentioned meanings. 7. Allah is watching over them and seeing whatever they are doing and is recording their conduct. It is His responsibility to call them to account and punish them. As for the words, you are not disposer of affairs over them, these have been addressed to the Prophet, peace be upon him. They mean, their destiny has not been placed under your control so that you may burn to ashes anyone who does not listen to you, or depose him from power, or annihilate him. This, however, does not mean that, God forbid, the Prophet, peace be upon him, regarded himself as such, and this was said in order to remove his misunderstanding or self-conceit, but this was meant for the disbelievers. Although apparently the Prophet, peace be upon him, himself is the addressee, the real object is to tell the disbelievers that the Prophet of Allah has made no such claims as were usually made by their so-called saints who posed to possess great spiritual powers. Among the ignorant people it is generally thought that the so-called holy men have the power to ruin the destiny of anyone who behaves insolently towards them in any way, so much so that even after their death if somebody happened to dishonor their grave, or if nothing else, only nursed an evil thought about them in his mind, they destroyed him completely. Such a thought is in most cases spread by the holy men themselves. As for the good men who do not themselves say any such thing, their names are exploited by some other clever people, who spread such thoughts about them in order to promote their business. In any case this is regarded as a necessary corollary of spirituality and piety among the common people that one should possess the powers of making and marring destinies. To destroy the spell of the same fraud, Allah is addressing His messenger, peace be upon him, as if to tell the disbelievers, you are no doubt our messenger and we have blessed you with our revelations, but your duty is only to guide the people to the right path. Their destinies have not been placed under your control, they are in our hands, therefore, to watch over the deeds and acts of the servants and to punish or not to punish them is our own responsibility.
Those who have taken others than Him as their
وَكَذَلِكَ أَوْحَيْنَا إِلَيْكَ قُرْآنًا عَرَبِيًّا لِتُنذِرَ أُمَّ الْقُرَى وَمَنْ حَوْلَهَا لتنذر أم القرى ومن حولها وتنذر يوم الجمع لا ريب فيه فريق في الجنة وفريق في السعير.
And thus did we reveal this Arabic Quran to you, that you may warn the people of the mother of cities, to wit, Makkah, and those who dwell around it, and warn them of the day of gathering, concerning which there is no doubt, whereon some will be in paradise, and some in the blazing fire.
8. The same thing which had been said in the beginning of the discourse has been said again with greater emphasis, and by making mention of the Arabic Quran, the listeners have been warned to the effect the Quran is not in any foreign language but in your own language. You can understand it yourself directly, study its themes and see for yourself that the pure and selfless guidance that is being given in it can be from none other than the Lord of the universe. 9. That is, arouse them from slumber and warn them that there is nothing but destruction in store for them in consequence of the errors of morality and conduct in which they are involved and of the perverse principle on which they have ordered their individual and collective lives. 10. That is, tell them also that this destruction is not confined only to this world but the day has to come when Allah will gather together all mankind and subject them to accountability. Even if a person escaped the evil consequences of his deviation and wickedness in the world, there will be no chance of his escape on that day, and highly unfortunate is he, who is doomed to a tragic fate both in this world and in the hereafter.
وَلَوْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ لَجَعَلَهُمْ أُمَّةً وَاحِدَةً وَلَكِنْ يُدْخِلُ مَنْ يَشَاءُ فِي رَحْمَتِهِ وَالظَّالِمُونَ مَا لَهُمْ مِنْ وَلِيٍّ وَلَا نَصِيرٍ.
If Allah had so willed, He could have made them all a single community, but He admits whomsoever He pleases into His mercy. As to those given to wrongdoing, they shall have none as protector or helper.
11. This theme has three objects in this context. First, it is meant to instruct and console the Prophet, peace be upon him, as if to say, do not grieve so much at the ignorance and deviation of the disbelievers of Makkah and their stubbornness and obduracy. It is Allah's will that man should be granted the freedom of choice and action. Then whoever desires to have guidance should be given guidance, and whoever wants to remain astray should be allowed to go astray. Had this not been Allah's will, there was no need whatsoever of sending the prophets and the books. For this only a creative hint of Allah Almighty's was enough. All human beings would have become as obedient as the rivers, mountains, trees, stones, and all other creatures. In this connection, see Surah Al-An'am, ayats 35-36, 107. Secondly, its addressees are all those people who were involved in the confusion, and even now are, that if Allah really had wanted to show guidance to human beings and He did not like the differences of creed and practice that were prevalent among the people, and wanted to have the people adopt the way of the faith in Islam, there was no need for the revelation and the book and the prophethood. He could have easily achieved this object by creating everyone a believer and Muslim by birth. Another result of this confusion was also this reasoning: when Allah has not done so, the different ways that we are following are approved by Him, and whatever we are doing is according to His will. Therefore, nobody has any right to object to it. To remove this misunderstanding also, this theme has been mentioned at several places in the Quran. Please see Surah Al-An'am, ayats 112, 137, 148-149, Surah Yunus, ayat 99, Surah Hud, ayats 118-119, Surah An-Nahl, ayats 9, 35, and the relevant ends. Thirdly, its object is to make the believers realize the truth about the difficulties that one generally faces in the way of preaching religion and reforming the people. Those people who do not understand the reality of the God, given freedom of choice and will and of the resulting differences of temperament and methods, sometimes become despondent at the slow progress of the reformatory work and wish that some supernatural things should appear from Allah, which should change the hearts of the people, and are sometimes inclined to adopt unsound methods of bringing about reformation, owing to excessive enthusiasm. For this object also this theme has occurred at some places in the Quran, for which see, Surah Arad, Ayat 31, Surah An-Nahl, Ayats 91 to 93. To highlight these objects, a very important theme has been expressed in these brief sentences. Allah's real vicegerency in the world and His paradise in the hereafter is not an ordinary blessing, which may be distributed over creatures of the rank of the earth and stones and donkeys and horses as a common blessing. This is indeed a special blessing and a blessing of a very high order for which even the angels were not considered fit. That is why Allah created man as a creature endowed with power and authority and placed vast means of His earth under His control and blessed him with these special powers so that he may pass through the test, success in which alone can entitle a servant to His blessings. This blessing is Allah's own, no one has a monopoly over it, nor can anyone claim to have it on the basis of a personal right, nor has anyone the power to take it by force. He who presents service before Allah, who takes him as his guardian and comes under his protection, alone can have it. Then Allah blesses him with help, guidance and grace to pass this test, so that he may enter His mercy. As for the unjust man who turns away from Allah Himself and instead takes others as his patrons, Allah has no need that he should become his guardian by force. And the others whom he takes as his guardians do not possess any knowledge and power and authority that they may enable him to achieve success by dint of their guardianship of him.
أَمِ اتَّخَذُوا مِن دُونِهِ أَوْلِيَاءَ فَاللَّهُ هُوَ الْوَلِيُّ وَهُوَ يُحْيِي الْمَوْتَى وَهُوَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ.
Are they so foolish that they have chosen others rather than Allah as their protectors? Yet it is Allah who is the protector and who resurrects the dead and who has power over everything.
12. That is, protection or guardianship is not a thing of one's personal choice and satisfaction that he may take anyone he may please as his guardian, and the other may also become his real and true guardian and may do full justice to the function of guardianship. This is a reality which does not change with the whims of the people. The guardian is he who is really the guardian, whether someone regards and acknowledges him as his guardian or not, and the one who is not in reality the guardian is not the guardian, no matter whether someone continues to regard and acknowledge him as his guardian till the last moment. Now, as for the question, what is the proof of only Allah's being the real guardian and of no one else's being the guardian? The answer is, man's real guardian can be the one who changes death into life, who has created a living man by breathing life into inorganic substances, and who also possesses the powers and authority to do full justice to the function of guardianship. If there is such a one, apart from Allah, he may be made the guardian, and if he is Allah alone, then taking another beside him as one's guardian is nothing but ignorance and folly and self-destruction.
وَمَا اخْتَلَفْتُمْ فِيهِ مِنْ شَيْءٍ فَحُكْمُهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ ذَلِكُمُ اللَّهُ رَبِّي عَلَيْهِ تَوَكَّلْتُ وَإِلَيْهِ أُنِيبُ.
The judgment on whatever you differ rests with Allah. Such is Allah, my Lord. In Him I have put all my trust, and to Him I always turn in devotion.
13. From here to the end of verse 12, though the whole discourse is a revelation from Allah, the speaker is not Allah but the messenger, peace be upon him, of Allah. In other words, Allah Almighty is telling His Prophet, peace be upon him, to make this proclamation to the people. Such themes in the Quran sometimes begin with Kul, say, O Prophet, and sometimes without it. Only the style indicates that the speaker at a place is not Allah but Allah's messenger. Even at some places though the words are Allah's, the speaker are the believers, as for example in Surah Al-Fatiha. Or, the speaker are the angels as in Surah Maryam, ayat 64 to 65. 14. This is the natural and logical demand of Allah Almighty's being the master of the universe and His being the real guardian. When sovereignty and guardianship belong to him only, inevitably he alone is also the ruler. And it is for him to judge human beings' mutual disputes and differences. Those who restrict it only to the hereafter make a mistake. There is no argument to prove that Allah's position as a ruler has no effect in this world but is meant only for the life hereafter. Likewise, those who restrict it only to beliefs and a few questions of religious nature are also in the wrong. The words are general and they clearly proclaim Allah as having the sole right to judge all disputes and differences. According to them, just as Allah is the master of the day of judgment in the hereafter, so he is the best of judges in this world too. And just as he is the settler of the differences pertaining to beliefs as to what is the truth and what is falsehood, so also in legal matters he is the settler of differences as to what is pure for man and what is impure, what is lawful and desirable for him and what is forbidden and undesirable. What is evil and vicious in morals and what is good and virtuous, what are the rights of the people in their mutual dealings and what are the right practices in social, political and economic life and what are wrong. On this very basis the Quran has declared this principle as the fundamental of law. If there arises any dispute between you about anything, refer it to Allah and the Messenger. Surah An-Nisa, Ayat 59. And, it does not behoove a believing man and a believing woman that when Allah and His Messenger have given their verdict in a matter, they should exercise an option in that matter of theirs. Surah Al-Ahzab, Ayat 36. And, O people, follow what has been sent down to you from your Lord and do not follow other patrons beside Him. Surah Al-Araf, Ayat 3. Then, in the context in which this verse has occurred, it gives another meaning also, and that is, to decide differences is not only Allah's legal right on accepting or rejecting which depends on man's being a believer or an unbeliever, but Allah, in fact, practically also is deciding between the truth and falsehood, due to which falsehood and its worshippers are ultimately being destroyed and the truth and the faithful are being honored and exalted, no matter how delayed the enforcement of this decision may seem to be. This theme occurs in verse 24 below and has been expressed at several places in the Quran. For this please see Surah Arad, Ayats 17, 41, Surah Ibrahim, Ayats 24 to 27, Surah Bani Israel, Ayat 8, Surah Al-Anbiya, Ayats 18, 44 and the ends. 15. The same Allah, who is the real settler of disputes. 16. These are two verbs, one of which is in the past tense and the other in the present, which contains the sense of perpetuity. In the past verb it was said, in whom did I put my trust, i.e. I decided once and for all that as long as I live I have to rely on His help, on His guidance, on His support and protection, and on His decision. Then in the present verb it was said to whom I turn, i.e. whatever situation I face in life, I turn only to Allah in it. I do not look towards others in an affliction or trouble or difficulty but invoke only Him for help. I seek only His refuge when I face a danger and depend on His protection. I turn to Him for guidance whenever I am confronted by a problem and seek its solution in His teaching and guidance. And I look up only to Him when I have a dispute with somebody, with the belief that He alone will give the final decision, and have the faith that whatever decision He gives will be the right one.
فاطر السماوات والأرض جعل لكم من أنفسكم أزواجا ومن الأنعام أزواجا يذرأكم فيه ليس كمثله شيء وهو السميع البصير.
The originator of the heavens and the earth, He has appointed for you pairs of your own kind, and pairs also of cattle. Thus does He multiply you. Not in the universe is like Him. He is all-hearing, all-seeing.
17. Literally, nothing is like His likeness, which implies this: even if there were a likeness of Allah, nothing would be like it, not to speak of being like unto Allah Himself. 18. That is, at one and the same time He is hearing everybody and seeing everything in the universe.
له مقاليد السماوات والأرض يبسط الرزق لمن يشاء ويقدر إنه بكل شيء عليم.
His are the keys of the heavens and the earth. He enlarges and straightens the sustenance of whomsoever He pleases. Surely, He has knowledge of everything.
19. These are the arguments to prove why Allah alone is the true guardian and why putting trust in Him alone is right and correct and why He alone should be turned to in all matters. For explanation, see Surah An-Nam, Ayats 60-66, Surah Ar-Rum, Ayats 20-22 and the ends.